So, definition of accounting as given by American Accounting Association is process of identifying, measuring and communicating economic information of related to companies or organizations, right, to permit informed judgments and decisions by a user of the information. It's an application of the general theory of information to the problem of efficient economic operations. You have to communicate information about what your business is doing, right. Why is accounting needed? We understand broadly what is accounting. Why do we need accounting?
कमाता हूँ बहुत कुछ पर कमाई डूब जाती है कमाता हूँ बहुत कुछ पर कमाई डूब जाती है कुछ इनकम टैक्स ले जाता है कुछ बीवी उड़ाती है कुछ इनकम टैक्स ले जाता है कुछ बीवी उड़ाती है कमाता हूँ बहुत कुछ पर कमाई डूब जाती है.
So they can keep arguing between husband and wife. But the topic is, if you do not keep track of your expenses, you can keep earning, but if you do not do good job of financial planning and analysis, then the money will keep flowing out, right. So, you are all understanding why we need accounting, proper accounting, right. And why do we need financial analysis, like good financial analysis? You got the point? So, if your expense, if your income is 50 paise and if your expense is 1 rupee, then very soon you will be in trouble, right. So, if your income is 50 paise, your expense should be 30, 35, 40, 45 paise, right. So, your expense should be below your incomes. So, you have to do a proper tracking of your incomes and expenses, you have to analyze your finance properly in order to do all of this, right. So, that is the reason we need good financial analysis, right. And so, the topic is clear. So, I will not see, I do not waste my time too much on theory, and we will directly, as you know, start swimming, right. Swimming ab shuru kar dete hain, within 5 minutes we will start swimming, yeah. So, next. So, I am just summarizing the process of accounting. I am assuming no one here is married, right. You have a married student? You are married? Congratulations. And consolations to your husband also. Okay. So, marriage was an important event of your life? Right. And did you do any accounting for marriage? Acha. Theek. That's fine. So, okay, fine. So, but marriage is one of the most important event of your life, one of the most important events, clearly. But is it an economic event? No. Marriage, in a marriage you have to spend money is a separate issue, but is marriage an economic event per se, or is it a personal event? It is a personal event, right. Birth of a child is a personal event, right. So, all these things may be important events of our life, but only economic events which are called transactions, only economic events which are called transactions will be recorded in the books of accounts, right. So, and when we do accounting for business and not for the owner. When we do accounting for business and not the owner. Are we clear? So, let us see 63 of, how many of are there? 77 of us and 2 of us. So, 79 of us, right. 79 of us jointly decide to start a business. How many? 79 of us. Let us say we contributed 10,000 rupees each. 10,000 rupees each. So 79 people contributed 10,000 rupees each. How much did we contribute as a group? 7,90,000. 7,90,000. And we started a business. This is what is called as the share capital of the business, right? So when we do accounting, personally, I am down by 10,000 rupees. Personally, from my pocket 10,000 rupees has gone out. From your pocket 10,000 rupees has gone out. From your pocket also 10,000 rupees has gone out. So personally, we are all down by 10,000 rupees. At a personal level or at an individual level, we are all down by 10,000 rupees, cash down 10,000 rupees. But from the business perspective, the business has 7,90,000 in cash, right? Yes. So when we do accounting, we will not say कि यार मेरी जेब से 10,000 रुपये चले गए. No. When we do accounting, we will say the business has received 7,90,000 in cash. So cash is up by 7,90,000, and this 7,90,000 of business, who does it belong to? All of us, यार हमने पैसे दिए हैं, ठीक है ना? This 7,90,000 belongs to all of us, right? All of us who are inside this classroom, हमने पैसे दिए हैं, right? And who are we called as? We are called as shareholders. So we are the insiders. The room is locked. All of us inside this room, we have contributed 10,000 rupees. We are the insiders. This money belongs to us insiders. If I am using the word if the business is closed today, then if I said if the business is closed, if I used a big if, right? If the business is closed at this point of time, immediately, who will get this 7,90,000 rupees? Us, all of us. All of us will get 10,000 rupees back, right? So the money belonged to us as insiders or as shareholders. Everyone contributed equally. Everyone will get their respective monies back. So when we do accounting, we will first identify economic events or transactions, not personal events. Then we will record, classify and summarize them. How do we record, classify and summarize? So when the business gets something, they will first pass something called as a journal entry, right? After passing the journal entry, they will prepare something called as ledger accounts, and after ledger accounts, they will prepare a trial balance, and from the trial balance, they will prepare the profit and loss account and the balance sheet, and also the cash flow statement can be prepared, right? That is the basic way of recording transactions. But as I said, in this class we will speak very little of debits and credits, very little, right? अगर किसी ने पूछ लिया तो I will be forced to answer. But as I said, in this class, accounting will be discussed in purely mathematical language. So if you are from engineering or science background or any other background, you will not suffer as long as you know how to add and subtract and multiply and divide. So when we have recorded the transaction, so we passed journal entries, prepared ledger accounts, prepared the trial balance, prepared the profit and loss account and the balance sheet, and prepared the cash flow statement. We have already prepared the required statements that are usually seen by both internal people and external people. Then we communicate them by preparing reports and analyze and interpret those reports. We will see it later, how to prepare reports. How many of you have WorkX? So if you have WorkX, then you already know that in your companies they were preparing reports which were being used by managers to make decisions, right? So that's what the job of accounting is. In financial accounting, we prepare profit and loss account, balance sheet and cash flow statement. In management accounting, we prepare some more reports like budgets and lots of other reports, yeah, to analyze the impact on our decisions, like what if we did this, what if we did that. So that's what we do in management accounting. So the internal users of a financial reports are one, management and supervisors, which you have seen in your office. But there are external users also, like investors and creditors, tax authorities, regulatory agencies, customers, labor unions and economic planners. Rahul kahan hai? So Rahul, yeah, you are also Rahul. Yeah? So this Rahul and that Rahul, right? Let's say he wants to start a business. He doesn't have a penny. He doesn't have a penny. इसकी जेब में 10 रुपए हैं. That's all you say, assume. He has 10 rupees in his pocket. And let's say you have lakhs of rupees. Let's say. I'm not claiming that you have lakhs, but let's say. You are friends. He says, I want to start a business, can you give me 1 lakh rupees? Let's say you give it to him. Others will call you a fool. Please excuse. But let's say you still gave it to him. Yeah? कि चल दे दिए. If you gave him 1 lakh rupees and you know he doesn't even have a penny, all he has is 10 rupees in his pocket, and if he is doing business, will you be interested in what he is doing or not? And मेरे पैसे हैं. What are the key concerns you have when you give him 1 lakh rupees? क्या? Obviously? Share. Share का क्या करना है? You want to buy shares in his company? Then? क्या? पार्टनरशिप. मान लो आपने पैसे दिए, पार्टनरशिप वो नहीं कर रहा. नाउ व्हाट आर योर कंसर्न्स? मैं ये थोड़ी बोल रहा हूँ कि आपके कंसर्न क्या है. So when you give, okay, let me just put it very simply. When you give money to somebody, do you want to be paid interest on a timely basis? भैया इंटरेस्ट तो दे टाइम पर. पता नहीं अगर ये यहाँ से आपके पैसे लेके चला गया पहाड़ों में और गायब हो गया, will you be worried कि आपके तो पैसे गए? Are we getting it? So when we give money to somebody, we are interested in getting interest on a timely basis. But is that sufficient? That's not sufficient. We also want to ensure the return of the principal. कि यह principal भी दे मेरा, right? He said, I will return your money in 3 months. For 3 months, I will pay you interest. So every month you will tell him, bhai interest to de. And after 3 months, you will tell him, please return my principal money. Are you getting it? Once he has paid you interest for 3 months and once he has given your principal amount back, then do you care ki whether he has run away from Ponta Sahib and gone somewhere? No. But without giving you your money back, if he runs away, you will be worried. Are you getting it? So when people give money, creditors, the minimum concern that they have are 2 things. Am I getting my interest on a timely basis? Will I get my principal amount back? These are the 2 major concerns, right? Share and all, this is a separate issue. कि if he is totally feeling कि कुछ भी नहीं है जेब में, बोले ठीक है, let me buy your business. That's a separate issue, yeah. But as long as he is giving me my interest and principal, I am happy. ठीक है. So this is the fundamental concern of any creditor or any investor as such. कि how safe is my money, right? How safe is my money? And who are the other users? We have tax authorities. Why would tax authorities be interested in our statements? So that so that we don't end up showing more expenses, false expenses, कुछ भी डाल दिए in the business, right? So tax authorities would want that you don't inflate your expenses and decrease your revenues unnecessarily, because if you do that, then you will be evading tax. So they will, of course, in addition, or with a scanner, they will look at how you have paid your taxes. At the same time, we have auditors who will certify generally the books of accounts, that yes, the accounts have been prepared and the financial statements present a true and fair view of the business, right? So, and similarly regulatory agencies, labor unions, your labor unions, if you are making 1 billion profit and if you are paying to your laborers 5,000 rupees per month, at some point they will come and tell you, paise do, right? We are working so hard, you have put entire profit for yourself and we are not even getting reasonable salary. Please pay not 5,000 but 10,000, 15,000, please pay something more. You are making so much of profit and not allowing us to even live properly. So, labor unions will also see how much profit you are making, whether they are getting at least a decent or reasonable share for their hard work. Are you getting it? So, there are like employees will also see that. कि not just the labor unions, even employees will feel कि यार हमें तो कुछ मिला ही नहीं है, सारा profit management ने खुद के जेब में रख लिया. They will feel. So that's the essence. So there are lots of users. Everyone has some stake or the other in business. Every stakeholder will look at the financial statement from their own perspective, and they will see whether my interests are protected or not. So they will specifically look at those sections. Of course, they may look generally at everything, but that's their biggest concern, whether my interest is protected or not, right? Are you getting it? Yes. So what is the accounting equation? The accounting equation is assets equal to liabilities plus equity. What are assets? Assets are resources that possess future economic benefits. So what are the examples of assets? Cash, furniture, chair, table, equipment, building, land. These are all assets, right? So in our business, what did we have? We had 7,90,000 rupees of cash, which was our asset, right? That asset, any asset of a business will belong either to insiders, all of us, or to outsiders. Any asset of a business will belong either to insiders or to outsiders. From class 7-8 set theory and Venn diagram, do you remember? Right? What was class 7-8 level पर set theory and Venn diagram you would prepare? कि हाँ, this is the universal set, this is that set, and this is set A, and this is A dash or whatever you call it, and jointly A plus A dash is equal to the universal set, right? So everything that belongs to business belongs either to insiders or to outsiders. If it belongs, the part of the asset that belongs to outsiders, in our case 7,90,000 rupees, the entire money belonged to us, so nothing belonged to outsiders. So what we can say, the claim of outsiders in the assets of the business was 0. So we had 0 liabilities. The claim of outsiders is called liabilities. The claim of insiders is called as equity. So it's called as shareholders equity. In the US they call it stockholders equity, right? What we call as share capital in India is called as common stock in the US. These are US slides. So you will see the US terminology, but it's clear enough, right? So in India we call them as share capital or shareholders equity. Shareholders equity is far more than share capital, but in the US it is called as stockholders equity, and share capital, the equivalent term in the US is common stock, right? So, and can we see that it is clear fully? Whatever is in business, all the assets of the business will be claimed either by outsiders, in which case it is called as liabilities, or by insiders, in which case it is called as shareholders equity or stockholders equity. Is there a third possibility? Is there a third possibility? Because outsider is room, I am claiming all the land and building on this planet or in this universe are either inside this room or outside this room. That is what I am claiming. All the land and building in this universe, not even on this planet, is either inside this room or outside this room. Is there any other possibility? Are we all clear? So, by definition, all the assets of the business either belong to outsiders, in which case it will be called as liability, something that we have to pay to outsiders, or it will belong to insiders, in which case it will be called as shareholders equity or stockholders equity. Does anyone have any doubt? Is the accounting equation proved from set theory and Venn diagram that you learnt in class 6 and 7? Is the accounting equation proved? Does anyone not believe the accounting equation? So, we are all sure that it is correct, right? So, let us start recording transactions. Chalo, everyone start writing. So, what you need is at least 10 or 12 rows let us say, and you need 6-7 columns, right? So, make 6-7 columns and rows तो बनी जाएगी, 6 से 7 column बना लो, right? 6-7 column बना लो, right? And so what we will start doing is we will start recording transactions in the next half an hour, and at the end of next 30 minutes, we would have prepared, the engineering, science and non-commerce and non-BBA students would have prepared the first profit and loss account and the first balance sheet of their lives, right? So, Sam Doty opened a business. So, you do not have to write this part, you only have to see this part. Sam Doty opened a business consulting firm during the month of September and provided you the following data. So, when you do accounting, do you do accounting for business or do you do accounting for the owner? Business. So, we will ignore the fact that when Sam Doty put 8,000 rupees from his pocket, personally at a personal level he was down 8,000 rupees, but we will ignore that fact. Why? Because we are not bothered about what is happening to Sam Doty. When we do accounting for business. So, what we will do is invested 8,000. So, how much he invested? 8,000 rupees in his business, right? So, when 8,000 rupees is invested in the business, from business perspective, does cash go up or does cash go down? Goes up. From business perspective, cash goes up by how much? 8,000. So, this business has cash assets. So, what is that? Business is cash plus 8,000. Are you all clear on this? Right? Business has cash 8,000. Does this 8,000 belong to outsiders or does this 8,000 belong to insiders? Insiders. So, the claim of outsiders, which is called liabilities, is 0 at this point, and the claim of insiders, the business will issue share capital or common stock to Sam Doty. The claim of insiders through common stock or share capital is 8,000. Are we clear on this part? Because outsiders have no claim if the business is closed right now. If the business is closed right now, who will get this money? Insiders, that is Sam Doty, right? Are we all clear on the first transaction? Let us look at the second transaction. Purchased 500 of supplies for cash. For the ease of understanding, let us call the supplies as, let us say, this chair. If you do not understand what supply, you think this is a chair. Purchased chair, 500 of chair or supplies for cash. When you pay cash for buying chair or supplies, does cash go up or down? Down. So, cash goes down by how much? 500. And when you pay for chair 500, did you get a chair in return? Yes. Right. So, cash went down from 8,000 by 500 to 7,500. You had 8,000 before this transaction, you had 8,000. After this transaction, cash has gone down by 500, but you have a new asset which is a chair or supply of 500, right. So, one asset went down, another asset went up. One asset went down, another asset went up. At the end of this transaction, does the accounting equation still hold? Are assets still equal to liabilities plus equity? Are assets still equal to liabilities plus equity? Yes. Now, how much cash we have? 7,500. How much of supplies or chair we have? 500. This ignore. Do we have to pay if the business is closed at this point of time, immediately after this transaction? Does the business have to pay even a penny to the outsiders? No. Because if the business is closed right now, then the business will return to Sam Doty 7,500 of cash and 500 of chair. He will say, भैया chair भी ले जाओ और cash भी ले जाओ, काम खत्म. If he doesn't want the chair, let's say he can sell the chair and convert it into cash for 500. So, we have repaid the entire money that we had taken from Sam Doty as share capital, right. So, let us look at the third one. Purchased 4,000 of equipment on account. What is equipment? Let us say it is a simple machinery. Let us say equipment is a simple machinery. So, we have purchased this equipment. When you purchase something, you either pay cash immediately or you say, I will pay cash to you later. You either pay cash immediately or you say, I will pay cash to you later, right. If you pay cash immediately, you say, I purchased using cash. If you say that no, I will pay to you later, then it is called as purchasing on account. So, in this particular case, we have purchased 4,000 rupees and we will not consider dollar, we will consider rupees. Is that okay? So, we have purchased equipment for 4,000 rupees, but on account, right. So, when we buy an equipment worth 4,000, did one asset or equipment go up or down? Up. If we had paid cash, if we had paid cash, cash would have gone down. Yes, but in this case, we did not pay cash, right? We did not pay cash. So, will cash go down or up? No change. Since we did not pay cash, there is no change in cash. Equipment goes up. When we pay cash, the transaction is settled immediately. But here on account, we say, I will pay you later. So, do you have to pay to some outsider later? Do you have to pay to your some that, right? Is that outsider your chacha ji? पैसे देने पड़ेंगे? If he was your father or uncle, you would have said please, right? That is what you do. But since he is not your father or uncle, you have to pay to the outsider, right? So, you have to pay to an outsider. When you pay, when you have to pay something, that is the claim of if the business is closed right now. If the business is closed right now without paying, will he not come and say mere paise do? Will he not come and say mere paise do, right? So, you owe money to outsiders, which is called as liabilities. Are we clear? So, you owe money to outsiders, which is called as liabilities, and in business parlance, when you have to pay to somebody who is an outsider, then that person is called your creditor. He is called as your, he or she is called as your creditor. The other name for creditor is accounts payable. Similarly, when a person owes money to you, he is called as your debtor. When a person owes money to you, he is called as your debtor, and the other name for debtors is accounts receivable. Are we all clear on that part? Perfect. So, this 4,000, one asset is up, but since we have to pay to an outsider, then a liability is also created. That liability is called as accounts payable or creditors. And so, now at the end of this transaction, does the accounting equation still balance? Yes. It is still balancing. Are you all clear? Is there anyone who is not writing and whose accounting equation is not balancing at the end of the transaction? Next, received 3,000 cash for consulting services. See, he has opened a consulting firm. The business has received 3,000 cash for consulting services. How much? 3,000 cash. We rendered some consulting service. Business has received 3,000 rupees cash. So, when business receives 3,000 rupees cash, does cash go up or does it go down? Up. So cash is up by 3,000, right? When business receives 3,000 rupees for rendering some service, do we have to pay out any money to any outsider? So liabilities remain unchanged. This, मान लो हमने काम किया, we earned 3,000 rupees. Will the equipment person come and say कि 4,000 तो equipment के दो, and ये equipment, please pay me 4,000, also give me some share of profit of your earnings? He may say, but will you give? लोग आके बोलेंगे हमें भी पैसे दो, आपने इतना प्रॉफिट कमाया. But will we give? Because what we will say, if there was a loss तो तुम भरते? He will say ना मैं तो नहीं भरता. Then we will say get out, right? So since the earnings, if all expenses belong to us, then all the sales will also belong to us. So what does the business sell? Business sells either some goods, so we will call it revenue from sale of goods, or it will sell some services, so we will say revenue from rendering services. So revenue from rendering services is called as service revenue. Are we clear? Revenue from rendering services is called as service revenue. So this belongs to insiders, this doesn't belong to outsiders, right? But within insiders, now we will introduce a second category. Within insiders, we had the share capital. Is it part of share capital? No. It's part of the earnings that we generated by operating the business. Are you getting it? It is not part of the initial principal amount that was invested in the business by the owner, which is called as share capital. It is not that. We will have a new category called retained earnings for the timing or earnings, which it is part of, right? We can call it earnings or retained earnings. एक बार retained earnings word ले लेते हैं, then we will see. Yeah. So this 3,000 of cash has come in, and this 3,000 belongs to outsiders? No, it belongs to insiders. Is it part of share capital? No, it is part of our earnings. So let's for the time being call it retained earnings. Does the accounting equation balance at the end of transaction number 4? Balances. Is there anyone in class whose accounting equation is not balancing at the end of this transaction? Right? Let's move to transaction number 5. We paid salaries of 800 rupees. When salary is paid of 800 rupees by business, does business receive cash or does business pay cash? If business pays cash, then does cash go up or does it go down? Down. So when we pay salaries of 800, cash is down 800, right? This is an expense of business. 800 रुपया खर्चा हो गया, right? We are poorer by 800 rupees. Will any outsider come and say कि since you paid 800 rupees, let me contribute 800 rupees? Will any outsider come and say this? No. So who has to bear this expense? We only. Since the revenues belong to us, all the expenses also belong to us. खर्चा हो गया, दुखी हो जाए थोड़ा सा. This 800 rupees, cash is down. Liabilities, since we have paid cash, is there any liability to the external world? Do we have to pay anything extra to the external world? No. From our stockholders' equity, we just had a service revenue of 3,000 rupees. So if our profit till the previous transaction was 3,000 rupees, because of expense has our profit gone down a little bit by 800 rupees? Since we had an income, जितना खर्चा करोगे उतना income, जितना जेब से मतलब profit will go down. Are we getting it? If you are spending a little more, then your profits will keep going down, right? So at this point, our retained earnings or earnings, earlier till the previous transaction it was plus 3,000, but now it's plus 3,000 is there, but it's also minus 800. So our profit at this point is not 3,000, but 2,200. So salary is paid. So now earlier our service revenue was 3000, expense now is 800. So, now at the end of this transaction our income from operations, is 2200 from operating the business or from running the business. Now, we also paid rent of 200. So, when we pay rent of 200, does cash go up or down? Down. So, cash is down 200, and when we pay rent, this is an expense, rent expense. So, our profits go up or down when our expenses go up? Do our profits go down or up? Down. So, our retained earnings, which was 3000 to start with, became 2200 after 2 transactions, has now become 2000 after these 3 transactions. 3000 of revenue and 800 plus 200, 1000 of expense. So, my profit is 3000 minus 1000, which is 2000. Are we clear that this part is actually representing the profits from running the business, and this part is representing the original investment. So, if Sam Doty says to business, कि भैया क्या कमाया मेरे को हिसाब दो, right? We will say, okay, 8000 rupees is what you invested initially. By running the business, I made a profit of 2000 rupees. So, 8000 plus 2000 belongs to you. Are you getting it what I am saying? Paid 1000 owed to a creditor. We bought this equipment for how much? 4000. We bought the equipment in transaction number 3. We bought 4000 rupees of equipment on account. We bought this equipment for how much? 4000 rupees. How much did we owe to the outsider? 4000 rupees. What was the terms agreed? Let us say we agreed that we will pay you 1000 rupees within say 10-15 days, and after some months I will pay you balance 3000. Let us say this was agreed. So, now he is saying ki bhaiya give me my 25%. I have given you 4000 rupees of equipment. You had agreed to pay me at least 1000 rupees within 10 days. 10 days later pay me my 1000 rupees, right? So, when you pay 1000 rupees to an outsider, does your cash go up or down? Down. So, cash is down by how much? 1000. And originally how much did we owe to him? 4000. Originally we owed to him 4000. But now that we have paid 1000 to him, do we owe 4000 or do we owe less? Less. How much do we owe to him now? 3000. Why? Because 4000 is what we owed to him originally. Now that we have paid 1000, so my creditors or the claim from my business of outsiders, what is this? Liabilities, the claim of business from outsiders was, if he comes now, I pay him 1000, can he claim 4000 from me? I will tell him 1000 I have already paid to you. So, I will only pay how much? 3000 back to you, right. So, at the end of this transaction, the liabilities have gone down from 4000 down by 1000, and net as you can see is 3000. So, let us move to transaction number 8. बहुत हो गया काम business का. Now वो हो गया कि भैया 1 महीना हो गया है and business has earned a reasonable profit. So, business decided कि ठीक है, the profits of the business can either be retained inside the business or it can be distributed to the shareholders. There is no other third possibility. The profits of the business can either be retained inside the business or it can be distributed to the shareholders. What is distributed to shareholders is called as dividend. What is distributed to shareholders is called as dividend, and what is retained inside the business is called as retained earnings, right? Is called as retained earnings. So, the corporation paid a dividend of 1500 in cash to Sam Doty. So, when corporation gives cash, does cash go up or does cash go down? Down. So, cash is down 1500. Is there impact on any other asset? No. Accounts payable, do we know anything to outsider because of this? No. Now, before this transaction, the share of Sam Doty in either the share capital or all the earnings of the business was 8000 rupees of share capital and 2000 rupees of income earnings. 3,000 of revenue, 1,000 of expense, so 2,000 rupees of earnings or income. Are you seeing that? Before this transaction. So 2,000 rupees of profit existed, business decided to give to Sam Doty as dividend 1,500 rupees. So his share of earnings, he has already taken a huge chunk of it, right? So only 500 of his share of profits is left in the business, because the profit was 2,000, 1,500 is distributed, so only 500 is left. Are we all clear? The profit of the business was 2,000. The part of profit which is distributed to the shareholder is called as dividend. He got 1,500. The part of profit which is retained in the business is called as retained earnings, and that is 500. Are we all clear? Perfect. So everyone now start doing the final calculations. Kiska kitna aaya? Are your figures matching with this figure? Please calculate on your own. Your balance is how much? 7,000 after all pluses and minuses. Your balance is 7,000. Supplies, your balance is 500. Equipment, ये तो सिर्फ plus minus करना है, right? This is pure plus and minus. Equipment, your balance is 4,000. Accounts payable, your balance is 4,000 minus 1,000, which is 3,000. Common stock 8,000, and retained earnings 2,000 of profit, 1,500 of dividend, and 500 of. सबके आ गए balances, right? So this represents your income statement or profit and loss account. Do you see that? This represents your profit and loss account or your income statement. Revenue is 3,000, expenses to 1,000 total. So profit of 2,000. This plus this jointly represents your retained earnings statements. Ki 2,000 of profit minus 1,500 of dividend is equal to 500 of retained earnings. And what you see in the last row, after doing all the pluses and minuses, this represents your balance sheet. What does this represent? This represents your balance sheet. What is this saying? Your cash is 7,000, your supplies is 500, your equipment is 4,000, your accounts payable is 3,000, your common stock or share capital is 8,000, and your retained earnings now are only 500, because 2,000 was your profit, 1,500 is distributed, what is retained by the business is 500. So this is what you have done. So now, even though we have prepared the profit and loss account and the balance sheet, so let's prepare the profit. Income statement is also called as the profit and loss account, and retained earnings statement is called as retained earnings statement. So फटाफट ये prepare करो. Are you getting it? We have already seen it how to prepare. ठीक है? So चलो फटाफट prepare करो. Revenues 3,000, expenses 800, 200, 1,000, profit 3,000 minus 1,000, 2,000, right? And 2,000 of profit distributed 1,500, so you are left with 500. वही चीज, just prepare a proper income statement and retained earnings statement. So under retained earnings, we will see, since the business was started on 1st of September and he contributed share capital on 1st of September, there was no retained earnings to start with. There was no opening balance of retained earnings. Business ही तो अभी start किया है. When you start a business with scratch, do you get your Dadaji's fortune of 10 billion rupees? No, you start from scratch. So the starting balance of retained earnings was 0. You start from scratch, right? So now let's move to the next slide, which is preparation of balance sheet. See, this is what was the last row. The last row of what you just did was assets में cash 7,000, supplies 500, equipment 4,000, liabilities में accounts payable 3,000, equity में common stock 8,000, retained earnings 500. This is the last row of what you just did, right? So वही चीज you have to present in the balance sheet as assets. You write all the three: cash, supplies and equipment under assets. How much? 7,500, 4,000. So total 11,500. And this 11,500 belongs to outsiders 3,000 and to insiders 8,500. Out of claim of insiders of 8,500, 8,000 is for share capital, 500 is for retained earnings. Are you seeing it? So this is the balance sheet that you have to prepare, and this is just the reproduction of what was there in the last line of what you just did. So under balance sheet, what will you prepare? Assets on one side, assets, then you will say assets are equal to liabilities and stockholders equity. So you will show If liabilities is this, stockholders equity is this, the total of assets matches with the liabilities and stockholders equity. Is that right? Hi, this is Dr. P. Sanjay and I am a professor at Indian Institute of Management, IIM in Sirmaur. If you like my videos, please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.